You are listening to the Leadership Vision Podcast, our show helping you build positive team culture. Our consulting firm has been doing this work for the past 25 years so that leaders are mentally engaged and emotionally healthy. For more resources, you can visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Dr. Linda Schubring for a conversation about transformation, the power of story, and how listening shapes who we become. We're going to be diving into some of the heart behind Unfolded, Lessons in Transformation from an Origami Crane, which is a new book coming out June 4th that Linda co-authored with Brian that blends metaphor and meaning and strategy to help all of us reflect, grow, and dream forward. Let's get into it. Hi, Linda.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
It's just the two of us.
It is just the two of us. It's easier to edit when it's just two people
great.
in conversation.
I'm glad.
That's not to say anything against Brian, but you and I have not done a solo podcast
It's been a while.
for a while. So I'm excited to talk to you today. I think we're going to talk about transformation.
Yes.
You and Brian have your new book coming out here in a couple of months, I guess, at the point of what we're recording this.
It'll be a month, yeah.
Something I've heard you say a bunch was how a lot of what unfolded in the book, Unfolded, Lessons in Transformation from an Origami Crane, from listening, from the stories that you heard from clients. The characters in the book are not any one client, but like a whole bunch of clients together. Can you just talk a little bit or describe what that means and how listening, the idea of listening, kind of shaped some of what this book is about?
Yeah, I think that's how we approach people. I think at Leadership Vision over the years, when we're sitting with people, we are not just listening to the words that they are saying. We're listening to what's important to them. We're listening to the tenor of their voice. We're listening to where they're coming from. We're listening to the things that are important to them. And when Brian and I started writing the book together, there was a realization that we could do something with all this data that we had. The stories that we gathered, the stories that we heard could be integrated as kind of meta themes into our book. I think it's the craft of listening that we've been doing for so many years. And as you know about Brian and me, we listen and then we try to make meaning, and then we want to do something with it. We want to use the lessons we're learning to help other people, the insights that we're gathering to invite people into a deeper story. And so I think about the people that I've heard about. I think about positive or negative. Usually someone's a shaping voice for the good or bad. As well as spheres of influence, many different things. And the common thread, Nathan, is that what makes us human is that we are growing and changing people. And obviously there's times in our lives when we get stuck, yet there's something that happens in places of growth. And that's where we name where in our life, and that's why the origami animals are made out of maps. Usually growth happens in some specific place. And so all that came together in the creation of our story.
I'm curious, in some ways we're doing a practice podcast here for when you go on the podcast circuit promoting this.
That's right.
I want to talk about origami. When we were texting about this yesterday, the book's not about origami. It's about transformation.
Correct.
So can you tell me, why did you choose origami to tell the story of transformation? Why maybe specifically an origami crane? And how did that evolve or come out of this whole idea of listening and hearing from other people's stories?
The heart of the idea was from Brian, right? So that will be his his
he will
to
unpack
answer.
that later. Sure.
We'll hit more of that later, but for me, when Brian said, "Okay, this is going to be origami, and this is going to be a crane, and this is why," and the story began to unfold in his mind, and then he would pass it to me. I really started to look at elements of origami that were really beautiful, and that is the simplicity, and that is the elegance, and that is components of every origami animal usually starts with a mountain fold. And it also then there's a valley fold. And as I was reading a little bit up on origami and trying to think about how this metaphor, how we could kind of pull a thread through the metaphor, I thought there are so many mountain top experiences in our life, and those usually are points of pivot and points of change, the things that we celebrate, whether it's a new home or a new partner, a new job, a new promotion, a new place. And all those mountaintop experiences, I think as humans, we want to, or we choose to celebrate. So we celebrate the graduations, we celebrate the retirements, we celebrate the weddings, the markers in our story where it is a point of transformation from one thing to the next. And when I started to think about the valley folds, I couldn't help but think about how disease and death and a diagnosis and suffering and a role being eliminated, or needing to ask for forgiveness, or realizing that we're not the same people that we were, that those parts of grief are about the valley experiences, which we can track to a valley fold in origami. And so I wouldn't say that we are the foremost experts on origami, but I would say that we tried to use components of the metaphor to really pull through and begin to speak about change, adaptation, transformation in some different ways.
You know, it's interesting. So part of the book is unfolding. It's in the title.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say that part of that process is realizing that a valley fold might actually be a mountain fold, or vice versa? Because the reason I asked that is because it was my son's birthday yesterday, and
I can't believe it. I
he's
can't believe he's 12.
It's wild. But something that I've done since he was 1, and I do with my other kids as well, is I'll take all the videos I shot on my phone and edit it into a little 3 to 4 minute highlight video. And last night we watched all 12 of his.
Come on.
And it was very emotional. I can't imagine what's going to be like when I'm going to do it till he's 18. But where I'm going with this is that the one of the COVID year, so 2020, so he would have been, 7 into 8, his 8th year. I watched that with such a mountain experience. Like, that was an amazing year. Like, I cannot believe how simple things were. But at the time, I remember being so difficult and being like, dear God, I'm not going to get through this.
Yes.
So I don't know where my question is in this, other than to say, can you sort of talk us through that process of humans realizing when you unfold or look at your map, look at your life experiences, and be like, actually, that was deeply changing and transformative, and without this little 4-minute video, like, I don't know why it hit me so hard last night, but I was like, good grief, that I just remember that being so difficult, but it was like so powerful. So I don't know, just I guess reflect on that or talk about that, or what does that have to do with anything here?
It has a lot to do with things, because that is a point of transition. Like, I think that even your son's story maps a bit to our allegory in that, you know, he is pursuing dreams through figuring out what he likes, and that he's a little bit of a ham in front of the camera, and he can command an audience, and he looks after his siblings. So there's some beauty in that. I think when you think back to situations where, wow, that was really hard in the midst of it, but then kind of this was the joy as a result. Or I remember for me going through, and I'll come back to you, but for me going through cancer, I remember I would tell our daughter, I would say, okay, remember, what's the best part of cancer? She's like, you and me get to spend more time together.
Yeah.
Right? And I cherish that. So although I was very sick for many of those days, the days that I felt good, she and I had so much fun. She had so much fun in her formative years and my points of suffering. So of course I can wax nostalgic and I can look back and think like, okay, yeah, I was getting killed. Like, that was Chemo was trying to kill me. COVID was trying to kill all families, it felt like. And so, of course, looking back at some of those times and then wondering, wow, like there was goodness that came from it. I don't think it detracts from the fact that at the time it was a defining moment. It felt negative in the time. I think when you look back, it could have been very pivotal in how close your family is.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about, you talk about being meaning makers, and you're talking about like making meaning out of something. How much does the book deal with or talk about that process? Because a lot of people, I think, just kind of zip through their life without taking a moment to look back and draw some connections, to make some meaning out of things that otherwise just flies by.
Yeah, I think there is a practice of meaning making. We know that as humans, we are meaning making machines. However, sometimes the fast pace of our lives and the busyness of our lives just put us into survival mode. And even right now in our world, with everything changing so fast and a lot of uncertainty and a bit of chaos, it is, okay, where do I have a chance to breathe, and how do I look around at what's happening now so I can take some more purposeful action forward? So I wouldn't say that an allegory will invite the reader to think about yourself or think about what might be applicable to your situation. I think about the gift of story, and the gift of story allows us to step into a story wherever we start to resonate. So I think there will be people that will read the story, and when they look at one part of their life, they will say, oh yeah, those are the voices in my head. Or they might say, those are the characters in my team. Or yeah, that is a similar dream that I had and how I wanted to navigate my life or my world. So yeah, I'm curious about how people will take this and run with it. I think that there will be meaning to be made in so many different ways. Some of the things that we've intended to happen have come out in, like, people are seeing different things. I think that's what happens with art. That's what happens with story. My hope is that it would be a book that could be handed to someone who is at a specific pivot point. Whether it's good or whether it's hard, whether it's it feels like a mountain fold at the time or it's really a valley fold. I hope that there will be people that will pick up a copy for their graduating seniors, that they will, maybe it's a graduation gift you give to people, I like that. Or as you are getting ready to leave for university, or the parents, right? The parents that are now needing to find a different dream and think about what their life will look like without that person in the nest.
Yeah, I want to come back to that, but I want to bring something else up. You've talked about this as a philosophy and a strategy. Yeah. That's not a word I would think of that would naturally come to mind when I think of a story like this. So what do you mean by a strategy? How does this book become a strategy for helping people meet their potential?
The way that the story unfolds, it's going to be hard to use this word without
I know
feeling really cheesy about it. But truly, the way that the story unfolds, and we won't go into it now, but I will tell you, is that it starts with a dream. It moves to a sense. The next chapter is called play, and so there's this sense of what does it mean to kind of bump into what you love to do. So I will often call play practice in disguise. So that's the second chapter. The next chapter, chapter 3, is try. And once again, this tracks to a strategy, a philosophy, that it's one thing to have a dream. It's another thing to just kind of practice and figure out what you are enjoying in the world. And then try is putting some intention behind it. Like, okay, if I need to get there, then what will I need to do? And so we would say that try really looks like practice with intention, like deliberately practicing something to get you to the next place. The fourth chapter is fly, and that is where there's the takeoff, right? There is the pursuit and lifetime release of a dream. And the final step in the strategy or a philosophy, as we are inviting the reader to think about, is home. We know that it's one thing to live a dream, and it's another thing to realize, is this all that there is? Now what do I do? And we would say that home isn't that place of comfort as much as it's a place to give your life away, to share the lessons that you've learned, to go home and help the people around you in your sphere, in your circle, be better at what they are doing and what they are part of.
How do you think teams can benefit from this? There's, like in our notes here, you talk about, Unfolded is really for anybody in transition, anybody who feels like they're called by something, living their dream. There's a lot of language around kind of that personal journey we're all on. But I've also heard you talk about it, this whole idea, metaphor, philosophy, strategy as being really beneficial for teams. How do you think a team, say of 8 people or whatever, can benefit from this same allegory?
The team can benefit because rarely does everyone look the same, sound the same.
Yeah.
And the cast of characters that we introduce in Unfolded have a way of working together as a team where there's synergies between people and an understanding of why there's not synergy with others. And at the heart of it, I think we want to invite people to think about what they can learn about the dreams of people and not, we know that there's jobs to be done, but to understand what motivates people, what gets them excited, what they were doing as a young child, even that they can kind of pull forward to today. I mean, you have the podcast, but when you were young, it was stand-up comedy, right? And so there's just opportunities to, as a leader, for me, it is important to know what are some of the dreams of the people that I work with and work around. By way of how am I getting in the way of someone else's dream? How am I helping someone unfold to be refolded into who they want to be in their next step in the journey? Yeah. So,
and I guess
there's
where
multiple bounces.
Yeah, so many bounces to this. 'Cause I guess what I'm thinking of is, so the character of Origami Crane is optimistic, has the dream, is kind of in relentless pursuit of this, but then you've got the other characters that some of them I almost identified with more, and we're not going to go into the whole cast of characters. So I wonder if, if a team is reading this, they can, and I don't think the goal is for everyone to become the Origami Crane, but there's elements of that it's like maybe you got a little too much of the fox in you, and maybe you need to figure out why that is.
That's right.
The fox is, if there's a villain, it's probably the fox. Is that accurate? Yeah. So anyway, I think that would be could be a fun activity.
It's a fun activity, or it would be
fun.
It would
be fun.
It would be fun. It would be a meaningful activity to begin to consider who plays the different voices, and if you're ready to put that voice to bed and pick up a new voice. So I've had a shorthand with some of our pre-readers as I've been talking, and there was a younger professional that was reading the book, and I was just telling her, you are a young owl with a little bit of eagle. And, it just seems like you're giving people numbers or, assigning them a different personality type. But after this book, I think there's a shorthand that people of all ages will resonate with. Yep. And that's the part I'm really excited by. And I think more than ever right now, people are being forced to dream and think and explore what their next chapter is going to be. And hopefully this will provide some universal handles for that.
Well, Linda, this is great. I'm excited that this dream has been realized, your dream, Brian's dream, the collective dream. And I'm just excited to get a physical book in my hands. I know you are too.
Me too.
And then to actually get it out to a wider audience and get feedback and start interacting it, because that's when I think it will really come alive. So thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
And thank you, listeners, for listening to the Leadership Vision podcast. You can click the link in the show notes or go to schubrings.com to pre-order your copy of Unfolded Lessons in Transformation from an Origami Crane, available everywhere you get your books on June 4th, 2025. We would also love it if you could share this podcast episode and any of our other material with someone that you think would benefit from this message. I'm Nathan Freeburg.
I'm Linda Schubring.
And on behalf of our entire team, thanks for listening.